finish up our bag, we're going to need the key and the webbing and our buttonhole foot to make the buttonhole and our swivel hook to attach to the other end of the webbing. So let's get started. The first thing to prepare when we're adding our buttonhole is the piece where we're going to sew the buttonhole. I've drawn a line going across this X mark where the handle's been sewn on, so that's where I'm going to line up the buttonhole, but I need to know how big to make the buttonhole. So then, if we look at this, this is our webbing, which I said earlier is a 1/2 inch wide. So I found a button in my button jar that's about the right size. So that's one way to size the buttonhole, because the buttonhole foot with this machine actually has a feature where you insert the button into the foot and it makes the buttonhole just the right size. But I realized that not everybody's going to have all kinds of buttons in their stash, so you might want to just try a few different options. One would be to sort of measure the webbing and give it a try on a scrap piece of material, and that sometimes works too. So let's go ahead and do a test buttonhole on some scrap material. This is just extra bag fabric. We're going to select 0, which is the buttonhole. Now that the buttonhole foot's on, I'm going to lower it down onto my scrap piece of material. I'm going to pull the buttonhole maker lever down, and you can see here it says push. So I'm pushing it, and now I'm just going to simply press firmly on the foot control and do nothing until the machine stops, and it will stop automatically. Now I'm raising the presser foot, and you can see the buttonhole that's been created. I'm marking the length of the buttonhole on my handle piece, and based on the scrap buttonhole that I made, I'm lining this up here. So my markings are sort of where the inside opening's going to be, but I really need to start about there on those parts. I'm starting at the lower portion of where I mark the buttonhole. I've lowered the presser foot, and so now I'm just going to press firm pressure on the foot control and let the machine do all of the work for me. And now we will unveil the buttonhole, and all I have to do is trim the buttonhole. The easiest way to cut the buttonhole is to take 2 pins kind of at the beginning and at the end, and this way we can put our seam ripper in there without cutting through the buttonhole. And just so you know, the dust brush that comes with the machine is also the seam ripper. And so I'm going to put this in here, right in the center, and cut going into the pin. The pin here has prevented me from cutting too far in, and I'll do the same thing going in the other direction. And just to be safe, I'm going to go one more time this direction. I'm going to remove the pins. So let's take the key and insert it in our buttonhole. Very nice. And now is the time that we're going to sew the last piece of our bag together, and that's to take the webbing and sew it onto the swivel hook. And before you start sewing, I just want to point out I've switched to black thread, I've switched to the standard sewing foot, a straight stitch, and I've remembered to push the buttonhole activation lever back up so that it's no longer in my way. So it's complete. There's just one more thing, and that's to put my own key on the swivel hook so that when I head to the market, I'll have my keys safely tucked down in my bag. There you have it. I hope that you had as much fun as I did making this bag, and I hope that you learned something, and I also would hope that you would be inspired to do something as special as this for your own city. So thank you for your time, and see you later.